It's Community Conversations. I'm Miss Community Clovia. Joining me on the show is Richmond Mayor L. Douglas Wilder.
Glad to be with you as ever, and will be with you for a few months yet.
I know. Until we elect a new mayor for the city of Richmond. But we're going to move back in. We're talking about the voting process, and I'm telling you, it's serious. Election day coming up next Tuesday, November 4th. We're going to talk about, and a lot of folks are hearing this all over the news, and we have first-time listeners to news all evening long, like you see in MSNBCs. The Wilder and the Bradley effect versus the effect.
Right. Well, you know, and foreign news media tremendously interested in that, because what that means to them and to others, they're saying Barack Obama has this big lead, double-digit leads in some quarters. You had a double-digit lead 2 weeks out when you were running for governor. And then when you were elected, it was less than 1/10 of 1%. What happened? I explained to them first that I never had the double-digit lead. My own internal polls that we were taking on a regular basis, day by day, I was only up by 2 points. 2 points. Only down by 2 points. And so the other polling wasn't matching our polling. Some of it was oversampling. When I say oversampling, polling in more Democratic-leaning areas than would have been the case, polling in more heavily populated African-American districts than would have been the case. And I also pointed out to them that you got to remember, in the southwestern part of the state, my opponent had attacked me as saying that I was against the Virginia right-to-work law, which is sacred in Virginia. Anyone who's against that is not going to get elected. And our people didn't respond as quickly as we should have. And I had to say, hey, look, pull that biographical piece of me off the television. Let's respond to this thing and hit it. It hurt me a little. Was there a racial aspect to the polling? Yes. But was it as significant as some may have pointed it out? It might not have been. Now let's look at Tom Bradley in 1982. When he ran, everybody swore he was winning by double digits. And yet, I can tell you, Tom Bradley did not get overwhelming support in the African-American community. They were mad with him, said he was taking them for granted, that he was campaigning all over California and ignoring them, spending too much time in San Francisco, not enough time in Oakland or in Los Angeles, Watts area. They didn't give him the latitude. I was criticized likewise for that, but I learned from what happened with him some few years earlier. The other thing that you got to remember in Tom Bradley's case, there was an issue on the ballot, which was a gun initiative that had heavy Republican support. Bradley was against it. The Republican absentee voting at that time was heavier than ever before. They were not counted. And so that likewise contributed to Bradley's defeat. Was race involved in it? Yes, it was, but not to the extent that some people think. So in either case, when people say, what about the Bradley-Wilder effect in your case, or in this case with Obama? I say, well, if the Wilder effect takes place, it's great, because I won, and Obama will win. Forget what those polls are saying. Look out and see what you see with bumper stickers and signs and yards and crowds and who's appearing. Was it, in effect, somebody lying about how much money they're sending to a candidate, raising more money than anyone in the history of this country? How can you attribute that to saying someone isn't really genuinely attaching himself to the interests of the American people? No, it's real. It's real, but take no votes for granted in terms of before they're counted. My thing on polls has been the only one that's important is the one that's taken on election day. Forget all those other things. Believe that you're behind. Run scared. Do the hauling and the calling. And make certain that you get everybody you can to the polls and vote for your candidate. And that's what's going to happen in this case.
With my interview with Mrs. Michelle Obama earlier last week, she said, you know what, we're running this race like we're 20 points behind.
And that's smart. And this is one of the things that he and I discussed in terms of polling. He's a smart man. He knows. you get a comfort feeling, though, after a period of time. And I don't mind telling you, even though I had a close race, I knew I was winning, and I knew I was going to win because I could feel it. Mm-hmm. I could sense it. I could smell it. And I think the same thing is out there in his case, but you can't take a thing for granted. As you point out, we're now closing in on the local races and race for mayor to people who are going to be taking my place. I have not endorsed anybody for that. We've talked about it on your show for some time. But it is very disturbing, though, when you see that some of the candidates, most of them really, for mayor particularly, they're not even aware of what's going on. They had a forum last night. One of them said that if he were elected mayor, he was going to bring CityStat to Richmond. CityStat is what is known in Richmond now as Richmond Works. It's an accountability measure that was put in place.
With that 311 number?
Yes. I've had it in place for over a year, which means this person wasn't even aware of it. If you want to do something that's been done already, that means, and that's been done while you're right here, you have no idea what's happened 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years. I'm scared about that. You got another candidate this morning on the radio saying, well, when he's elected, he's going to make certain we have a budget. We have an illegal budget. Silly. There's no such thing as any illegal budget. You have a budget. Who declares it illegal? We have a budget. How do you think people get paid? How do you think we have procurement? City council never has a budget. The budget is always proposed by the executive branch, whether I were mayor or whether it was city manager. That's who proposes the budget. City council can amend it or reject it. In this case, they missed the deadline, so the budget that it was sent over is the budget that we operate under. And there is no deficit, as this person says, in terms of $6 million behind. That isn't the case. So my concern, Clovia, is if this is what we're going to have, with the new mayor coming in, being of that thinking, it's going to take some time for that person to get their arms around what's going on, to even know which direction to go. 81% of the people in a poll say they love the direction the city is going. 81%. That has never been refuted. I want to see it continue. I want to see a council that's concerned with doing that same thing. When I was elected, there was a cartoon in the Richmond Times-Dispatch of a Wilder wrecking company with a wrecking ball tied to it and a picture of the city hall called City Bureaucracy. That was the day after my election. It said, in other words, that was my job, to knock down that old bureaucracy. Well, you can't knock down that old bureaucracy with kid gloves. You got to deal with what you got to deal with, straighten it up. And as I've said on your show before, it would have been nice if I could have gone along and said nice words and preachments to get it done. It would have been nice if I could have encouraged others to say, oh, let's all sing a song together, Kumbaya. Doesn't work like that. And the American people want change. The people of Richmond voted for change. They want that change to continue.
That's how we're going to sum it up.
Have mercy.
Richmond Mayor L. Douglas Wilder. I'll see you on the streets next week.
Don't you know? Have mercy.
That's Tuesday, November 4th. The polls are open from 6 a.m. until 7 p.m. Or if we get an extension, just keep on listening to the radio. We'll check on that.
That's exactly right.
All right. It's Community Conversations. I'm Miss Community.